Okay, so apparently this just happened. Huh. Is the Ecuadorian coup right? The Ecuadorian coup's right behind me, isn't it? Ecuador president invites more unrest by dismissing legislature. So this is cool. Um, it seems there's a military coup going on in Ecuador at the moment. I think we've talked about this a little bit, but he's facing the impeachment vote, and he responded with the boss top G move of just taking over the entire government. So that's super cool. Facing a looming impeachment vote triggered a constitutional clause to dissolve government, a politically fraught move that could spark protests. The Ecuadorian leader has invoked a procedure known as mutual death, where the opposition-led National Assembly is dissolved and snap elections will be caused, according to a decree published on the website of the presidency. What? Sorry, according to a decree published on the website, that's how he made it known that he was doing a coup? He posted it on his fucking blog? Is the Ecuadorian president cringe? As I remember correctly, yes. This is like what happened in their neighbor country Peru last year, but the difference is that the president is the right wing. Man, Latin America. Jesus. My God. I don't really know enough about Ecuador to have any, like, strong opinions on this. Does he have military support? Probably. What the fuck is this? What is wrong with you people? Jesus. Ecuador's opposition and influential Federation of Indigenous Organizations have previously promised mass protests of Lazo instead of Muerta Cruzada. Okay, okay, I'm not an expert on Latin America, even close, okay? However, in my experience, when looking at Latin American politics, a good, like, litmus test for every political beef is whichever side the indigenous people are on, that's the good one. Not always, but overwhelmingly, if there's a conflict and indigenous rights groups are on one side of things, that's probably the good one to be on. Not always, I'm sure, but yeah, mostly. Sick art. Yeah, it looks pretty good here. This is at the National Assembly. Man, wouldn't it be cool if our boring-ass fucking legislative building had any cool shit in it instead of, like, being boring and gay? Also, they all have computers. Oh my God, they're living in the future. Looks really cool. I think one of the reasons I really like this is because I feel like all of these would be hung up as degenerate art in Nazi Germany. You know what I mean? None of this is like boring paint by numbers, like Euro classicism or whatever. This is all, well, I don't know if I'd call it avant-garde today, but back when it was commissioned, it probably was, you know, obviously. Read the Spanish words, Vaush. Somos como la paja del páramo que se la arranca y vuelve a crecer. That was my best guess. That was my best attempt, okay? There we go. I tried my best. That was fine. Shut up. Sorry, yeah. They have the text of this ancient language written on the walls. Desgraciado del pueblo donde los jóvenes son humildes con el tirano Montalvo. Nice. Spanish is very satisfying to say, don't you guys think? Like, even if you have no idea what you're saying and you're mispronouncing it. Isn't Spanish like a satisfying language to roll, like, just let roll off the tongue? I mean, you literally roll your R's sometimes. Yeah, it flows very well. I don't know why people say that, like, French is the like the most romantic. French sounds disgusting. I genuinely don't get it. I think like Spanish sounds suave as fuck. German sounds cool. Italian sounds, I don't know, aggressive, energetic, enthusiastic, but I don't understand like French. I don't know enough about Portuguese to distinguish it really from Spanish, except it just sounds like uglier Spanish to me, but yeah. I grew up in Los Angeles, okay? I heard a lot of Spanish and not a lot of Portuguese. Hot take, but I find Chinese very sexy when women speak it. Man, I mean, you can cancel me for this. It's crazy to me. Chinese sounds so different to Korean and Japanese and so much worse to me. When I watching Parasite for Korean, I guess would be the most obvious, or like all the anime with Japanese. But whenever I hear any Chinese, maybe it's because I don't watch much Chinese media. So when I hear Chinese, it's usually like state broadcasters with like the subtitles underneath them. That might actually be it. Actually, no, come to think of it, that's a real bias. When I hear Japanese being spoken, it's from professional voice actors. And when I hear Korean being spoken, at least for Parasite, it was from professional actors. When I hear Chinese being spoken, it's like news broadcasts, politicians, agencies, or regular people getting translated in subtitles, which means that there's no like audio editing, there's no professional voice delivery. Yeah, okay, that's fair. I could stand to watch, I don't know, the Karl Marx anime in its original Chinese. Or what, Genshin Impact with the Chinese language? You mean Mandarin, I assume? Yes, the state yes, the Mandarin, the state language, yes, not Cantonese. I know there are a billion languages in China. Listen to a Turkish TV broadcast. Sorry, we're anti-Turkish now. We're Greek nationalists. Like an actual Marx anime exists? Yeah. It was made a couple of years ago. It's Chinese. 2019. Chinese animated web series that got made into... Yeah, look. They yassified him. I have to say, okay, you know how Korean people hate Japanese, like the Japan and Japanese people for reasons that have a decent amount of historical precedent? You know, like you could look in a history book and go like, oh, you know. I know China has the same reason to hate Japan. I feel like one of the reasons China is having kind of like this fascist revivalism cultural crisis is because it feels like China's culture is a lot more muddled than other countries. Everybody knows what Japanese culture looks like because they're this massive exporter of cultural influence. Like Japan, like the world around understands like elements of Japanese culture through their exports, right? Less so Korea, and I think that that contributes to a sense of national resentment. But what would the average person say if you asked them what like Chinese global culture is? China has a far larger population and larger economy and a global export market. So where's their cultural export? When I think of cultural exports from China, I think of like Genshin Impact and other gacha games. There are like a there are like a million shitty fucking like churned out third person action games where you play as like a kung fu fighter in the Han dynasty or whatever, and you fight a bunch of overdressed demons that are like copying Japanese aesthetics somehow, despite being based on Chinese lore, because they're like curbing this from like platinum game shit. I don't know. There's a lot of cultural stuff from China that feels really muddled. I wonder if there's this revivalist tendency to like get back to the roots or whatever. Like, because their culture is so dominated by trying to like produce Chinese knockoffs of everything the rest of the world is doing. Does anyone understand what I'm talking about? I'm not an expert on this, but like I know what I'm talking about is a real thing. China produces so much stuff and they knock off so much stuff because they don't respect copyright laws from other countries that they like make they try to make their own version of stuff, but it's always this like cheap hack not always, but like often a cheap hack together thing, you know? Like look at Genshin Impact and tell me that they're not like cribbing off of Japan there. Like like look at that and tell me they're not like copying notes in terms of aesthetic, cultural norms, tropes, that kind of stuff. Of course they are. And Breath of the Wild, which is, you know, Japanese because Nintendo's Japanese. What we're sold is not necessarily what they consume. That's true. That is true. What they sell to us is not necessarily what they consume, but there is an overlap, right? There is an overlap. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be more interested in learning. I want to learn more about what the internal culture of India and China are. We consider stuff such big deals here, like in America or whatever. We've only got a third of a billion people. Like they both got 1.5 billion. It's a huge. They're so much cultural engagement, you know? Vaush, for fuck's sake, please listen to an ethnic Han person. No, guys, please, please. Guys, China's colossal. Go to a Chinese person and ask them about China, and you could actually them, okay? Come on, it's so big. I'm generalizing. I know there's a billion caveats to everything. I know. I'm not saying China has no culture. Didn't they purposefully nuke their culture like 60 years ago? Yes, and they've been trying to undo it. The Cultural Revolution was literally like the mass destruction of Chinese historical artifacts and culture that was more prominent in the coastal and the cities, but like not so much in the rural areas. And lately, the past few decades, the Chinese Communist Party has been trying to undo it by like reviving an interest in Chinese history, you know? Mao saw China as weak and wanted to gut the culture. I mean, a lot of it was pretty, traditional. China's like the oldest continuous government, isn't it? Is there another one? Isn't China the oldest like country that we would know of? The China kind of like was the first country to have like a civic society, like an administrative state. Egypt? Yeah, but okay, isn't there something different about that? Like there's a discontinuation with Egypt. Like there's a reason we say ancient Greece and ancient Egypt, but we don't say ancient China, do we? We just say China back then. There's something about China that's this continuous. Do we? So do you guys think that's the same? Like ancient Egypt is like ancient China? But ancient, like modern Egyptians are Muslim. Ancient Egypt had their own thing going on. Whereas modern Chinese people aren't the same religion as back then, but I feel like there's more of a direct cultural tie. I know I'm right on this. There's more of a cultural tie between current and ancient China than there is between current and ancient Egypt or current and ancient even Greece. There's something. I don't know what. There's this continuation of the. Maybe not. Maybe I'm totally off. Yeah, maybe it's like an ethnic thing, because the Chinese from 4,000 years ago, the Han Chinese have been around for ages, right? But the Egyptians of 4,000 years ago, ethnically, like culturally, blah blah blah, everything, like there's like a difference there. I guess the Greeks would be the same ethnic group. Would they be like the Macedonians? But then, look, it's complicated, okay? That's unironically Chinese propaganda, Vaush. There's a reason the Han Chinese are named after the dynasty. Really? So, or maybe that history of continual Chinese control, that legacy, that continuity, that's actually like a propaganda thing meant to secure like Han supremacy in modern China. It's like they're like hearkening to the legacy, kind of. That's interesting. I don't know. Complicated. Research stream into Chinese history, let's go. No, that'll be like 20 streams. What if we did politics instead? Moving on. We sure are engaging in some historical speculation. I don't know anything about Chinese history, to be clear, okay? The only thing I know is that Sun Wukong is Goku, actually. That's the only thing. All I know is that the Chinese myth of Sun Wukong is based on Goku, the Saiyan. That's all I know. Yeah. Other way around? No. If you want to do politics, maybe cover the Turkish election results because they're really bad. Yeah, I saw. Well, I saw last stream that I did. Have they done the runoff yet? No, the runoff is on May 28th. I've already talked about the first go. Yeah. Erdogan forever. Does Erdogan have like a dictator song? You know what I mean? Like, Erdogan, he's the one for me. Erdogan. Like that kind of thing.